Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And Chodesh Tov. It is also Rosh Chodesh Iyar today. So when we get to the Amidah later on, you get to add in that special paragraph in our private reflections for Rosh Chodesh as well. But that's not what I want to talk about. I just have to make sure I get that out there because it's part of that public service announcement that's always needed. But actually, I want to talk about Shabbat. And I want to talk about the fact that Shabbat is on a particular day, which when you think about it is, not necessarily a given. I mean, yes, Shabbat is there to celebrate the seventh day of creation, yada, 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 we know that. But really, wouldn't Shabbat be more powerful if Shabbat came on a day that worked for me individually? I mean, it could be, depending upon your schedule and your life, that Friday and Saturday may not exactly be the easiest days to make Shabbat. Certainly in this country, many things are deliberately put on Saturday to avoid another Sabbath day, and that can make it quite awkward. And not just the convenience factor, but Rabbi Feigelson, one of our great professors at the Ziegler School when I was there, she told us a story that was told to her by her teacher and so on back through the ages of two students who really put this to the test. Two disciples of one of the early Hasidic rabbis, and they wanted another Shabbat. I mean, of course, they loved Shabbat. They loved spending it with their community, singing together, having the shared meals. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience, but it just seemed too long to have to wait another 7 days before you got another Shabbat. So the two of them got together in secret and decided they were going to make Shabbos on Wednesday, middle of the week Shabbos. Because don't we all need a little pickup in the middle of that week? They call it the hump day for a reason. So they decided they would do Kiddush, they would light candles, and they knew this was a little bit wrong because doing some of the blessings when it's not the appropriate time is a bracha levatala, but they felt it was in good spirit. They needed to do this, and they had a beautiful Kabbalat Shabbat together. They basked in the glow, and it felt better than ever. They thought maybe it's just a fluke, maybe they were just tired in the middle of the week, and the next day they got up and they davened Shabbat. And they realized as the day kept going and going, this was the greatest Shabbat they had ever had. They'd never had a Shabbat this good. And it was Wednesday. And when Shabbat was over, they felt a little uncomfortable about everything that had happened. It was almost as though their eyes had been opened that the Shabbat that they had been normally having on regular Friday, Saturday was kind of second best. That maybe they could make their own Shabbat whenever they felt like it, and it would be far superior to the regular Shabbat. So they did what any good disciples would do. They went to their Rebbe. And they said, Rebbe, we have a problem. Crisis of faith. And they explained all that they had done and all that they had experienced. And the Rebbe said, no, this is obvious. I said, well, what do you mean, Rebbe? I mean, Shabbat is, Shabbat Kodesh. It's the holy Shabbat. Wednesdays, it's just the day. Why would that be different? He says, no, it wasn't the day that was different. It was you that was different. You see, on Shabbat, you come in, you sit down, you stand up according to the rules of the service, according to the Chazan as they lead in the prayers. But on regular Shabbat, you wait for Shamayim. You wait for heaven. You wait for God to come down to you. Because you know that on Shabbat, heaven reaches down to us to give us that wonderful blessing of Shabbat. But on Wednesday that didn't happen. On Wednesday, you had to go up to heaven in order to have that experience. You had to climb higher than you ever climbed before. And so, of course, it felt different. But that same experience is available any Friday, Saturday. If you sit in the chair and wait for it to happen, then no, it's not going to happen. If you expect Shabbat to move you that way just because the calendar has said that this is the time of Shabbat, then yes, Shabbat will be adequate, but not amazing. But if on Friday and Saturday, together with the community, you decide to climb that mountain again, you decide not to wait for heaven to descend to you, but for you to ascend through this portal of Shabbat into the heavenly realms, then you will find that Shabbat is even more amazing than a Wednesday. Now, I took that story from Mimi, and I didn't quite understand it, at the time, because you're never supposed to understand Hasidic stories completely the first time. That's a rule. In fact, it wasn't until I had an experience that it began to open it up for me more clearly. Must have been only 3-4 years after I had come to Temple Israel even. So I guess, about 9 years ago. And it was a Friday evening, much like this. And just as services were about to begin, poof, it's Florida, we lose power. It happens. We weren't live streaming at the time. It was a Friday night, so it wasn't like I had to worry about the microphone anyway, because, we're not projecting across the entire sanctuary. So I tell everybody, this room is getting a little dark. Everybody grab a chair. We'll go out to the lobby. We got a beautiful skylight there. We got the large glass doors. And there'll be enough light for us to have our Shabbat service. And so we all went out there. We put the chairs in a big circle, and we did Shabbos. And afterwards, one of the regulars from the service who had been there said it was the best Shabbat she had ever had. It was the best Shabbat she had ever had. Sitting there in the fading light of the day, without air conditioning, like we are right now, it was the best Shabbat she'd ever had. And then I understood what Ramimi's story was trying to tell us. That when we put in the extra effort, not the regular effort of just showing up, but the extra effort that comes from having shown up, whether it's here in person or through the live stream, of engaging that extra few percent, whether it be dragging a chair, straining to see in the fading light, trying to make something out of a bad situation, when we compensate that little extra, rather than allowing it to just come to us, when we meet God halfway, that there is a different experience that happens. And indeed, Shabbat continues to teach that lesson over and over again. Most of our experiences in Judaism or indeed in life, we often will sit and wait to be entertained. We'll sit and wait to be informed. We'll sit and wait to be amazed by life, to be shown the meaning, the glory, the glamour of whatever it might be. But that's not how it really works. You have to get up. You have to move your chair. You have to squint in the dimness. You have to do something a little extra to show yourself that you are reaching for more than just what happens to drop in your lap. And when that's created, when you have that additional input in the experience that you are now having, it transforms it completely. So as we continue our Shabbat celebration, find that little extra piece within you, whether it be singing a little louder than usual, whether it be trying to keep up with the Hebrew more than usual, whether it be taking a moment to stop and read the words privately to yourself that maybe you've normally skimmed by, finding them unexciting or uninspiring. Give them another shot. Do a little bit more of you reaching to hear them. Do a little bit more of reaching out in general on Shabbat. And so too, when you are not here, reaching out to a loved one, a family member, a friend, a neighbor, trying to experience that moment with them with just that extra bit of extra effort from yourself, and see that it can be transformed. Yes, Shabbat is still the most blessed day of the week, not Wednesday, but we still have room to climb. There is still more to have in our experience than just what happens to us on Shabbat. So look what you can make of this time, yourself and together. Shabbat Shalom and Chodesh Tov.